Welcome to 1 Million Cups Kansas City. The mission of 1 Million Cups is to lower the barrier of access to education, resources, and connection for all types of new and aspiring entrepreneurs throughout the United States. 1 Million Cup communities gather across the country every Wednesday to share presentations and make authentic connections. 1 Million Cup events are free, open to the public, and always have coffee.
Welcome. This is a great community. I love the fact that we're able to come together and kind of support each other. So our mission, to lower barrier of access to education, resources, and connection for all types of new and inspiring entrepreneurs throughout the United States. So we have 1 million cups throughout the United States. So we are a volunteer-led national program. We are designed to educate, engage, and connect entrepreneurs. Our presentations are 6 minutes. I will use the words of Celeste, who always says we're not a Shark Tank, but a dolphin tank. So we're here to support each other. We do have very authentic connections, and we do network, but it's truly a group and community that is ready to support you. We have stories and presentations, and not necessarily just business pitches. So I am excited to introduce Stephanie. She's one of our organizers, and she is the founder and CEO of Empower Network. Let's give her a clap.
I have to say, I do miss being able to stand behind the podium. Okay, hi, I'm Stephanie Swanson. I am the founder of the Empower Network. We are a nonprofit entrepreneurship support organization that focuses on supporting the people that the traditional workplace has left behind. That is people with chronic illness and disability, right? That's our community. And just for a little bit of clarity, most of our community that we support is in the adult onset or adult exacerbation of an illness or a disability. That's going to be really important later as we talk about the differences between intellectual and developmental disabilities versus this other population of people. So let me just start by taking you back to 2022. In 2022, I got sick with a mild case of COVID. 1 month before I got sick, I was in the air performing. This is in Lawrence at Lawrence Buster Fest. I was a performing aerialist. I was working as a director in academic medicine, parent to 3 kids, active in our church, active in our community. And with one small viral infection that was actually not very bad, and my temperature never got over 101, and I just worked from home for 10 days, it completely upended my entire life. And over the course of a handful of months, I lost my ability to exercise. I lost my ability to work long days. I lost my ability to parent, and eventually I even lost the ability to read an email without debilitating neurological pain. There was a good chunk of time where every time my husband would come home from work, I would be in the basement in the dark, unable to function and unable to carry on a conversation. For me, it was COVID. And for a lot of other people, it's a lot of other things, right? But this is what adult onset of chronic illness and disability looks like. And it's incredibly important for us all to realize that it's not a threat, but the reality is it's coming for us all. Disability in some form is inevitable, right? Whether it's illness, injury, or age, we're all going to face the limiting of our capacity to a point that we are not able to do what we were able to do before. So I came across this quote about 2 years ago, and this is what changed the trajectory of my path. So the best you can do is what you can do without harming your physical or mental health, not what you can accomplish by disregarding them. I had spent my entire life up until this point just priding myself and being able to push through and do whatever it takes to get done. And that mentality was slowly destroying my life, quite literally. So I had to leave my job, and I jumped into life and career coaching. It's something that I was able to do with my skills, that I was able to do in and around my capacity. And I quickly realized that I was not the only person dealing with this. In fact, it was quite common. And as people were struggling figuring out how to fit their life together into this new reality of what their health could sustain, there were almost no organizations there to help them. And when I say almost no, organizations in 2022 The National Disabilities Institute put out a report about entrepreneurship and self-employment in the disability world. And at the time, they said there was one disabled-owned business incubator in the entire country. We're here in Kansas City. We are lucky. We have a really strong entrepreneurship support network. We have over 200 entrepreneurship support organizations in Kansas City, and almost zero of them are focused on people with disabilities. And the ones that are focused on people with disabilities are typically focused on those with intellectual and developmental disabilities and talking about vocational rehab, right? Think the ice cream shop that hires kids with disabilities, right? That's what our support looks like. It doesn't look like people like me. So that was the birthplace of the Empower Network. So what do? We support people with chronic illness and disabilities get off the crazy cycle of working in an unsustainable way. So what that typically looks like is someone gets hit with an illness or a disability. They're struggling to work consistently. They're calling into work. They're missing work. They have hospitalizations or doctor's appointments, and they're just not able to keep up. Eventually, that forces some form of leave of absence, right? Typically under an FMLA sort of structure, maybe a short-term disability, maybe it's paid, maybe it's unpaid, depending on your work, right? That's not sustainable, right? The best short-term disability is maybe 60% pay. So then people think as soon as I'm almost ready to go back to work, they jump back into work. And it doesn't work. So then all of a sudden they're asking for accommodations. Those accommodations may not actually work. So then they're jumping right back into, they're struggling to work consistently, even though they have some accommodations, and then back on the crazy train, right? Entrepreneurship is not for everyone, but for those that is the right path, we are helping to provide an off-ramp off of this crazy cycle into something that looks a little bit more sustainable. Okay, so everyone in this room is well acquainted with the costs of entrepreneurship, right? What are the costs? You are losing your stable paycheck. You are losing your benefits. You're losing your 401k and your 401k match. You're also often losing a social interaction, teamwork, networking, all of those things. So why the heck would someone who has chronic illness and disability want to do that? The fact is that it's because it's not an option, right? It's not a choice. It's the only option. That's why. Here's some of the resources that we provide. We'll dig into that a little bit further, but this is how we are helping people get off this crazy cycle. So who really are we serving, right? What I can say is we are serving people who are in this room. I know personally from talking to some of you that it is some of you in this room, right? It's the 34-year-old who was suddenly blindsided by an illness and there's no path to recovery. They don't know. The doctors don't know what to do with them. It's the recent college grad who landed their dream job, but now for the first time in their life, they're in a 40-hour-a-week work week, and they've realized that their migraine condition or their, whatever their debilitating illness is, their rheumatoid arthritis, their whatever, is all of a sudden a barrier to being able to actually work that 40-hour work week. Maybe up until this point, they've been able to navigate it, right? College can be flexible. You get breaks. You can adjust your life. It's also later on in the career, right? It's your 58-year-old who is an expert in their field and they've had an entire career. And now all of a sudden they're not able to work that full-time job because of a new diagnosis, but they still have so much to offer, but they can't figure out how to give that back to their industry. This is who we're talking about. So how many people is this? 22 million adults in the United States, ages 18 to 65, live with a disability. That number does not include those people with chronic illness I was just talking about. There are currently, of that 22 million, somewhere between 700 to 1.8 million who are already entrepreneurs without specific entrepreneurship support. So imagine what could be possible if there was targeted direct support to that community. And 25% of adults ages 18 plus live with some form of disability. However, if we include that chronic illness number, there's something like 35 people in this room. I mean, I know if you filtered in, right? Of this room, that would be, look around for a second, 20 to 23 people in this room could be navigating a chronic illness that could easily progress to disabling, right? It's your diabetic with a series of really unfortunate circumstances who now ends up with an amputation. It's your potentially a cancer survivor who has significant chemo damage from navigating that illness. And now they really struggle with some things that were basic before, right? I mean, 60%. That's a staggering number, isn't it? I mean, look at this. 20 to 23 of us in this room. So if we zoom in a little bit on Kansas City alone, right? That's 124,000 people in the Kansas City metro live with a disability, and many more with chronic illnesses that potentially could be disabling. I mean, am I crazy, or are those numbers just staggering, right? Like, it's astonishing to me. And then just some really important statistics here related to disability employment, okay? 67% of people with a disability would rather be employed than not. However, only 37.1% of them are currently employed, which leaves 30% of people with disabilities still job seeking. In addition, in order to find employment, disabled adults apply for 60% more jobs to get the same number of interviews than non-disabled people, okay? So not only are they wanting to be employed, employers are not even willing to talk to them when they know that they have a disability. These are the reasons why self-employment matters so much to this community, right? We are fostering economic independence. That is our goal. Freedom, economic freedom. So the barriers to success. Okay, so really, what are the barriers for this community, right? If you're not in the disability community, sometimes it's really hard to know. 5 years ago, I probably couldn't have described this myself, even though I have lived with someone with a disability. I have been the manager for people with disabilities. I still didn't really get it, you know, and that's just kind of the human experience. It's really hard to put yourself in someone else's shoes if you've never truly experienced it yourself. So some of the really important barriers that we are focusing on include, really short work windows with long rest periods. So you can do like a burst of work for a little bit, right? Maybe an hour, maybe 3 hours, but then you have to go lay down for 2 hours. For a long time during my illness process, I couldn't be up for more than an hour, and I actually had to purchase a laying down desk that I lay down on my bed, and then I have a desk that allows me to work over my head, right? Adjustments like that just do not work in a traditional workplace, right? Like, I couldn't go to my previous job in academic medicine and be laying down in my office. I don't think that would have gone over very well. There's also unpredictable energy. One of the really big things about chronic illness and disability sometimes is that the one thing that you always are is inconsistent. You never know when you wake up in the morning exactly what sort of day is facing you. It's a really important thing to be able to navigate, right? Tuesday morning, I might not be able to work, but by Wednesday at 5 p.m., I actually might feel great and I might be able to put in 4 hours of work, right? That's that kind of flexibility that people in this community need to be able to say, I can work, I can do good work, but it's going to have to be on my terms, right? It's going to have to be around the way that my body works now. And then another really important barrier is that chronic illness and disability is isolating, right? Like, there's this big social need that we all have. If we look around this space, right, it's so important when you're an entrepreneur to be in community. Why else are we all here this morning, right? It's so important. And yet the barriers to being able to show up to a physical place are sometimes really, really challenging, right? If you're a person who's on oxygen, you might have oxygen tanks on the back of your chair, right? Or maybe you're someone who's incredibly immunosuppressed. And so coming to a space like this, especially during flu season, is incredibly dangerous for you, right? There's all sorts of reasons why people struggle to show up physically and stuff like that. That's another issue that we're working to address. So just a few quotes from our community. The way that the current entrepreneurship support system is set up is mostly just not well equipped to handle this community. So one person said, I met with a business coach, but they really just didn't understand my physical challenges. And they said that you're going to have to do things like in-person networking and working long hours. However, this person knew that that would make it worse. And we had another person actually say they participated in a Kansas City-based accelerator program. It made their health so much worse, they had to take 6 months off of their business entirely in order to recover their health after the intensity of that short accelerator program. So those are the sorts of things that we're trying to navigate, right? How do we create entrepreneurship support that is flexible and accessible? And then the other side of that, right? Some people are trying to figure out if entrepreneurship is the right path, right? So they're looking at, maybe I'm going to go back to work, maybe I'm going to start my own thing, but I know I need accommodations. But the ADA says that it has to be reasonable accommodations. But what the heck is reasonable? Like, what am I allowed to ask for? I don't even know, right? Really complicated. And by the way, what the government says is reasonable is often what your boss thinks is reasonable. Fun fact, reasonable does not mean reasonable for the employee. It means reasonable for the employer. Very, very important distinction. I want to give you guys one really powerful example. I have had the honor of being connected to Gallaudet University. They're a deaf university out of Washington, D.C. I meet with Lorenzo Lewis. He's the founder of, he's the person who runs their entrepreneurship program for the deaf university. He and I just met recently, and I got permission to share this story. So he and his wife were at a coffee shop recently. They went to this coffee shop in the morning on a Saturday to, get their coffee. They're standing in line. And, he's scrolling on his phone, doing whatever we do as we stand in line at the coffee shop, gets up to the desk, orders his coffee, pays for his coffee, gets his coffee, and they walk out. As they're walking down the street, his wife signs to him, "Hey, did you know that this building on the corner sold? Did you know that so-and-so is going to put this new shop in here?" And he looked at her and said, "How did you know that?" And she said, "Oh, I overheard them talking about it at the coffee shop." When Lorenzo went to the coffee shop that morning, the only thing he learned was the price of his coffee. Everyone else in the coffee shop had the benefit of being able to hear and overhear, and that's called implicit learning in the deaf community. If you are deaf, the only thing you know in life are the things that someone signs to you, you read, or you see maybe, right? How much implicit learning do we get to do every single day as hearing people? It's how we learn as we grow, right? And so at Gallaudet University, they are working in filling in those gaps. So you go to university there, you're not just learning what all the rest of us learn in university. They're also learning, oh, where are the gaps in your education and where do we need to fill those things in, right? So now let's carry that into employment and entrepreneurship, right? This person has a barrier to communication. So if someone was deaf and they wanted to come into this space, we don't have an ASL interpreter, right? They would need to bring their own ASL interpreter with them. If they were going to have conversation, how much time as we're sitting in this space and we're talking, we're talking to someone here, but we overhear this thing and we go, oh, I want to go talk to that person, right? That's called implicit learning. And then the same thing carries through to also, interviewing. An interviewer is likely to say, despite the fact it's illegal, it doesn't matter if it's illegal, right? The interviewer is going to say, yeah, we had that employee, we had that person, but they're equally qualified to this other person, or maybe this other person is just a little bit more qualified, so it's just going to be easier for us to not hire the deaf person, right? They're going to make some justifications that fit within the legality of the ADA to avoid a lawsuit, or et cetera. Maybe they're not even going to, right? Like I hear stories all the time of people saying, yeah, no, we're just not hiring you because you're going to be hard to work with. And then it's up to the person who is also dealing with limited income and limited, capacity time to decide, am I going to follow that up with a lawsuit, right? Like these are hard questions. So these, the variety of experiences within the disability community are dramatic, right? But the fact is that at the end of the day, there are significant barriers to employment, and we are working so hard to try to bridge that gap. Okay, so some of the tools and resources that we're offering. So we offer expert-led and disability-informed webinars. We work with our webinar speakers before they speak to talk about what exactly to avoid, what not to avoid. We actually have a couple speakers in this room, and it's been really fun to be able to collaborate and talk about what are the unique things that you need to say to our community and what phrases should you avoid, right? We do not all have the same 24 hours in a day. Please do not say that. Things like that, right? Like, what are the things that we're talking about here? We also offer virtual coffee hours and art therapy sessions. We have a partnership with Emporia State University, so we offer art therapy once a month, and then we do virtual coffee hours that are a little bit structured and a little bit just that community space, right? A time to get together with other people to have some of that social interaction that is so often missing when you don't have a work community. We offer tech and business support sessions. So Rihanna here is in the front row. She leads our tech and business support sessions. That is hands-on support where our members can sign up and say, my MailChimp is broken. My Stripe is broken. My website's not working. I can't figure out how to fix this thing. I don't know how to price structure. How do I schedule things on social media so I don't have to do this every day, right? Like that is hands-on support directly for that person, personalized to that person. And then we're also building out some tools and resources that I'm really excited about. I'll talk about that in a second. So for context, we have 13 team members, 100% volunteer at this moment, which is amazing. I'm going to point out Rebecca here in the front row also. She's our marketing lead. We have 35 members. We've been around since May of last year. We have 35 people that we are serving regularly, plus people who are not actually part of the membership. Our membership structure is changing. I'm really excited about this, and it was supposed to be live. However, Squarespace and WordPress decided not to cooperate. So our website is still the old website. It doesn't have all of this new information on it yet. It will very soon. Our membership structure is designed so that there are some public offerings. You don't have to be a member for some of those public offerings. Or if you want to sign up for membership, there's a really small barrier to access. It's been $10 a month with scholarships available. We're switching it to be free with an application fee and then a suggested donation. What we've found is that telling people that there's scholarships available, we run into a really big emotional barrier. People don't want to apply for a scholarship because they think someone else is more deserving. They don't want to ask for help in that way, but they know they need help. We also have at our $10 a month level, which by the way is not intended to pay the bills, it's intended to be a commitment, right? That's the purpose of the $10 a month. We know that there's people who can give more than that. So by offering a suggested donation, we're allowing people to go from anywhere from 0 to whatever amount they can afford. And we're just going to tell them what the value that we're offering them is, and they can just self-select within that. So a lot of resources. Really excited about a couple I want to point out. So our tech and business strategy, I already talked about. Our tools and resources and templates is going to include things like a social media B-roll catalog that anyone can pull from, right? Business strategy work, photos, videos, templates, hooks for your social media, how to set up your email marketing, right? All of these tools just you can pull off the shelf and then customize. So looking forward, here's where we are. First of all, the Empower Network is our public facing work. We're working on scheduling out. We have 6 months of webinar speakers lined up now. So we're planning way ahead, which is really exciting. For the, we also have our Substack. We currently have one Substack that talks about disability and entrepreneurship. We are launching a second one very soon focused on clinical work. We have on our team, we have a retired cardiologist, a PhD, a woman with her PhD in nutrition and dietetics, a woman with her PhD in education and social justice. And the 3 of them are taking the lead on running this new clinical Substack that's going to be free publication. The Empower Collective is our membership. I already mentioned we're changing the cost structure and really building out the resources that are available there. And then I want to spend just a little bit of time here on the Empower You Fellowship. This is our dream program, right? This is our flagship program that we are actively working on fundraising for. This is a hand-selected fellows will get 6 months of hands-on support. Think virtual assistant, marketing, social media marketing support, business strategy support, right? All of that hands-on help to get past that starting friction of getting a business up and running. And then at the end of their 6 months of fellowship, we're going to transition them into a slightly lower touch sustaining area where they can still get a little bit of support. But the goal is to transition them over that hump and say, okay, you got your email funnels set up and you have an ability to talk to your clients and follow up, et cetera. Now, how can you maintain that and make sure that you are set up to maintain that? The thing is, people in our community can't work that 18-hour day that most of us are used to putting in to get those things up off the ground. The starting friction is a huge barrier. So excited about that. That one's going to cost us about $10,000 per fellow to provide. So hoping to have that money secured by the end of the year. And then last but not least, Empowered, oops, not too far. Empowered Together, we are really focused on collaborations, connecting with other ESOs, connecting with other disability organizations. That is going to make the biggest difference, being able to transform the landscape of the entrepreneurship ecosystem And tomorrow is a really cool event that I'm really excited about. So tomorrow in this building, hosted by Together International, who's the disability-owned business incubator I mentioned earlier. They've been around since 2012. They are hosting with the Kauffman Foundation this Disability Innovation Lab. Several speakers are going to be there. I'm going to point out Wesley over here, who I've actually never met in person yet. Wesley's going to be speaking. I will be speaking tomorrow as well. It's a full day conference. They do still have open spots. So if you want to scan this QR code, if you're at all interested, I checked with them yesterday afternoon. They do have a few open spots if anyone would like to attend tomorrow. It is free. So the point of this day tomorrow is to set the stage for Kansas City to become the hub for disability entrepreneurship in the country. All right, this is 1 Million Cups. We are less than a year old. I got a growth edge, y'all. I know that you all can appreciate, right? We're a new organization. We're still figuring this out. So I do want to highlight a few things that we are working on. So one thing that we've really found has been a struggle. We've been really successful at reaching our target audience, the people that we want to support. It's been really hard to figure out how to do the messaging for both our target audience and then potential supporters and funders, right? Helping people both understand the need and then getting the message in front of them. I mean, honestly, it's just challenging. It's two different messages. It's two different needs. I don't know what I'm doing, guys. The other thing is, with a nonprofit, we have a board of directors. I was really conscientious about recruiting a board of directors who's from the chronic illness and disability community. I wanted to make sure that our services and everything are targeting our demographic. I only know my experience, and I wanted to bring other people into that. What that means is that I have a board of directors who is not well connected with funded people. So that's a really interesting challenge to balance that between what is the goal of our organization, making sure that strategic planning is in place while also balancing the need for funding and getting connections to those potential funders, right? It's a challenge. And then same thing, right? Corporate sponsorships and grants, right? It's been amazing how much I've learned in the last year. And also we just have, as everyone in this room knows, when you become a founder, you all of a sudden realize all of your gaps. And that's okay, right? We're all learning. So as we transition to Q&A, I do want to open the floor to two different veins of questioning, whatever you'd like, right? First of all, we are an entrepreneurship support organization. So if you have questions about how to get connected or our programs, et cetera, happy to answer those. Second, we are also a new organization, right? I'm a member and an organizer for the 1 Million Cups community. If you have thoughts or suggestions or ideas for us as we move forward, love to take those as well, right? So both veins of questioning are great. And just for future reference, 1 Million Cups Kansas City is going to focus on bringing entrepreneurship support organizations, ESOs, to the stage about once a month to once a quarter. And so we'll have a presentation, something like this, right? Where it's a little bit more educational and a little bit more focused on supporting the entrepreneurs in the room a little bit more frequently. So that's all I got.
We are open to some questions.
First of all, thank you for your story. That was amazing. As you're going through there, one of the things, so you kind of I saw a lot of myself in there. I didn't realize any of that stuff, right? And so one of the things that hit me was we need peaky work, right? Like, so where, we can do work for 1 or 2 hours and then not rest or whatever. Is there a certain type of work that fits that? Like, so if we start looking across, surely there is work that needs to be done that could be X units per week or month or whatever. Have you identified any of that type of work?
I love that. Thank you so much for that question. So what's interesting about the disability world is that most of the time when people are thinking about disability employment, they're thinking about, right, a lot of vocational rehab, et cetera, looks at like, oh, can you be a greeter at Walmart? Can you check groceries? Can you bag groceries? That sort of thing, right? But the type of work when you have variable capacity has to be exactly what you described. And the only reason why most office type work can't be done that way is just because our work systems aren't set up to accommodate it, right? So any consulting work, any virtual assistant work, any expert, like I work as a coach. I see no more than 3 clients a day. I just schedule my day accordingly. I also do consulting work back to KU. I do that when I have time. I also work with, I have a few other clients doing other things, right? Aren't we all multi-passionate, by the way? And each of those, I have to be just really careful about when I schedule my work, right? So it's any type of work. Often it's going to be either work you can do from home or work you can do on a computer, right? Like that's whether it's being an artist, being a cottage law bakery, being some of these are hands-on, some of them are more of your office-based work, right? But if the employee is able to set their hours and you're able to be flexible on some deadlines, the reality is that both my husband and we're both engineers by training. Both of us have tried to work part-time in the engineering world, and it didn't work. But it didn't work not because it wasn't possible. It didn't work because the companies were unwilling to reduce the workload accordingly, right? So it requires, I think, the employer or the industry to be willing to make that adjustment, and that adjustment can be made for almost anything except something that's considered shift work.
So I'm actually Rebecca Schroeder. I'm part of the marketing team here with the Empower Network, but I'm going to ask a question that I've gotten a lot from potential members. So I've had people that are wondering about the privacy aspect. So we've got, HIPAA laws. We've got, they don't want to be on a call and someone know all of their business. We're very private people when we have disabilities. A lot of people don't want to put it out there. So Stephanie, how do we usually handle that privacy?
Yeah, great question. So one of the most important things for our community has been safety. And so we have we have not just our community standards and agreements, right? But at the beginning of every single call, we start with a set of agreements, and one of them is confidentiality. And it is, you don't tell someone else's story. We also talk, if it's a webinar or recording, we give people plenty of heads up. You want to change your name so that your name doesn't show up. Camera off, stay muted, right? We give everyone the opportunity to manage their own information. And we've even had, there was a couple times we published events as public, and another website came in and screen recorded the event and posted it without our permission, and then said, yeah, it happened twice, and then emailed us and said, hey, look, we did this thing to help you get more people. And I was like, cease and desist. Holy crap. And so now we, at the beginning of every call, we actually have everyone who's there do a thumbs up, do an agreement to it's like a verbal agreement of, here are our 4 standards that we expect everyone in this call to comply with. And, we obviously can't control people, right? But we can't set the stage.
I have 2 questions, or one helpful piece and then a question. So the helpful piece is, I am with a nonprofit here in Kansas City, and we are community health based, responsive to the community, and would love to share your social stuff. So I reached out to my coordinator. She's already on it. She's going to your sites and flagging them. So I just need to talk to whoever to get you guys connected.
Thank you.
Also, this is a more personal thing. I have a daughter who's disabled. She has a degenerative genetic disease, was a competitive gymnast until early teen years and struggles a lot, doesn't know what she wants to do. Do you have any type of program or know of a program for young adults who are really trying to get their footing underneath them, who have a disability that's just going to continue to progress?
How old is she now?
She's now 21 and working on her GED. School stopped for her at 14.
Yeah, so we have people that age as part of our program. We explicitly don't serve anyone under age 18 just because of laws, right? Like, we don't want to be dealing with also the complexity of working with youth. But almost everyone in our community, looking back, has some form of, this started in my teenage years and I didn't know it, right? My sister and I were both just talking recently about how, when I was an aerial performer, I'd go through training and we'd be like working in all of our training, and every time I'd do a set, I'd lay flat on the floor.
That was her.
And I didn't know that that was abnormal. I just knew that I was the only one in the room doing it. And that then progressed with COVID to now if I stand, my heart rate gets up to 180. And I can't, so like I can exist in these spaces if I use my wheelchair. But if I'm standing, I cannot, like I will be flat on the floor. And and so a lot of the people in our community can absolutely relate to her. Also, we have a college student who is getting her degree in disability studies. She's 20 and she's on our volunteer team. Yeah.
So I have really excited to see you present. I remember meeting you at Little Entrepreneurship Week. A few things. One is I don't know how plugged in you are as an ESO with like the Missouri Technology Commission, but you have a new director who's going to come to Kansas City and do a visiting tour, and you're perfect grantee for their ESO stuff. So you should talk to Adam. He'll hook you up. And Jessica Powell has a webinar on once a month on Wednesdays that Adam or I can give you the login for that Travis is going to speak at next week. So you should get engaged with that. Another question is so I actually was an engineering manager, had a deaf employee. I have a family member who needs to do peaky work like you described. Have you looked at trying to connect with businesses and help them if they have an interest? They have to have an interest, obviously, and how to go out and hire specifically people like say like we want to make a point of doing this and essentially create like a pathway, because I was thinking like I love the ESO aspect, but my family member is not interested in being an entrepreneur but would love to do peaky work. And so I think, and I don't know what other resources might exist, and maybe that's not your guys' thing, it's connecting those folks with businesses, maybe you only want to focus on entrepreneurs.
Yeah, no, I love that. You know, I mean, obviously we have a scope issue, right? Like we can only do so much, but there's an organization that we've connected with called Disability In. They focus a lot on helping businesses do that. And that's, I think, why we have that, you know, that last section, empowered together. We recognize that we can't all do the thing. We are not going to be capable of doing all of the things, but our partnership with Gallaudet University, because we don't have the capacity to serve a deaf person at the moment. But so we've built that pathway so that if the deaf person comes to us, I can send them straight to Lorenzo, right? Like same thing for the employers. I also think that we're going to need to think long-term about, you know, sustainable funding. And it's very possible that working with businesses is in our future as like consultancy sort of work to potentially help with a, you know, long stream source of funding. So those are definitely things that we're thinking about. And I appreciate the connection. Thank you so much.
Providing resources to them as well to find those connections.
And mine's to kind of piggyback off exactly what you just said. First of all, I love the story. I have a daughter with disabilities, so it's home had me tearing up, not gonna lie. I'll embrace that. Is there any option for like contract work? Reason being, I own a website design company, 100% remote. I want my people to work in their environment, their time frame. We have 2 to 4 weeks to build. Don't care when you work. Some of my people are weird. They like 2 in the morning. Cool, whatever works. But to protect ourselves in the beginning, we start off with contract to make sure it's a fit both ways. Things work out, they come on board.
Yeah. We have had 2 webinars so far on how to interview when you need disability accommodations. And then we had a recent one in February about virtual assistant work and talking a little bit about the difference between 1099 versus W-2 is an important distinction because a lot of our people will end up being 1099 is better fit. This is a great time to mention some of the numbers around Social Security disability. So Social Security disability, it's a bad rap, right? There is a big narrative in the world about people on disability are just being lazy and trying to milk the system, right? We've all heard this. We know this narrative. But I pulled the numbers. It is pretty absurd. The most important number to know is that when you are on Social Security disability, the most supplemental income, what's called substantial gainful activity you can make, is around $1,600 a month. Your disability pay is on average around the country somewhere around $1,500 a month. There's some additional supports, right? Like SNAP payments. I looked up the numbers. So food stamps is on top of that. Food stamps is typically $241. Have y'all bought eggs recently? $241 a month, okay? So the numbers are hard. They don't add up to a living wage. And so a lot of the people that we're supporting, if they were approved for disability, they want to be able to make that $1,600 a month, right? Like that's their goal, because they know that they're not going to be able to sustain more than that and getting kicked off their benefits, and then therefore losing their Medicaid, losing their health insurance, losing all of those other things, right? They're not going to be able to make that jump from here to there. So they're trying to do a little bit of a stopgap, right? To have a little bit more money to help pay for things like their medications, right? I spent $300 on medications last week. So it's things like that, right? So I am also happy to talk the statistics anytime, but I think that's a really important note, that a lot of our entrepreneurs are doing contract work or something, but they're looking at a certain number of hours, and then they're also looking at, can I make up to $1,600 a month, and how can I do that sustainably?
Wonderful presentation. So glad that you got this time to be to teach us so much. So 2 questions. First one is, what are the gaps you still have? If you had your dream of people to pick from, what skills would you be looking for? What would you love to have somebody in the organization doing that you're still missing?
I love you, Jennifer. Okay, so one big gap. So Rihanna here is our COO, and then Rebecca is marketing next to her. We need people who are willing to step into kind of the administrative day-to-day work, right? Like we launch these webinars, and then we're doing some video editing to get it up on YouTube. We are working on the Substack. We need someone to help communicate and line up all of those Substack articles, right? It's a lot of the administrative people who are really highly skilled in specific areas, right? Like I do video editing, and I would be willing to give you an hour a week to be able to get these videos up on YouTube, right? Or things like that. We have a really, really cool team. I just want to brag on our team for just a hot second, right? So Rihanna's got 25 years of experience in marketing. I actually don't know how many years of experience you have. A lot of experience in marketing also next door here. We have a disability education specialist he's worked in nonprofit disability education for a long time. He's leading our webinars. The reality is we just don't have enough people, right? Like we're trying to do so much work that we need people in somewhat kind of in every area, people who are willing to jump in, right? Like I have this skill set. Can you use it? I know that's not a specific answer to your question, right? But what's really cool is that I feel like we have the first skim coat across everything we're trying to do. And what we need is depth in all of those areas, right? And that's, I think one of the coolest things is we've built some really cool onboarding materials. Like we could get anybody plugged in pretty quickly now. If you have a couple hours to give, it could be 2 hours a month, honestly, even.
So make a list of
it's on the website.
Okay, then, and let's get that on Support Women We.
Oh, yes.
And then
Okay.
let's you and I chat about who else is out there that I've been talking to.
Yep.
Second question then is, on your expert webinars, what are the topics you are still wanting filled?
Ooh, great question. A big one that we need is the legal and HR side of disability, right? And also the finance side of disability. How do you start an LLC and not do it in such a way that screws you over, and now all of a sudden the government thinks you made a lot of money that you didn't make, right? How do you navigate? That's one of the presentations for tomorrow, is navigating what's called ABLE accounts. ABLE accounts are only available to certain people within the disability community, right? But that's one tool. There's a lot of people who are trying to figure out, how do I do this without putting my benefits at risk? How do I do this without getting myself in a situation where the government's going to come after me, right? Like it's that legal financial side of navigating self-employment with the disability that has been a huge gap that we haven't yet been able to fill.
Stephanie, very inspiring. 2 thoughts. One, it made me think about people I know that fall into this category. And on the first first front, most of these people I know, very skilled, very, before their illness took away their life from them, were top of their game. Now, essentially, they're depressed. And so when you talk about your clinical corner, I really think having some type of avenue there to help these people. But along that same line, I think most of them where they are now, they've accepted it and they need inspiration. So I would suggest you have some type of way for voyeurism to show people that this can be done. So a way for people to look in from the outside, be inspired to see this as a option. I think would be a huge win for the community, because when I talk to these people, they pretty much resigned to the fact that they're disabled, and they've tried a couple attempts to break through, but they've given up. So I think that would be huge.
Yeah, it is so discouraging, right? You try a few times and it just is really easy
So
to
that's-
get so discouraged. Thank you for that. We actually had a really phenomenal conversation in our coffee hours last week based in the Paralympics, right? Like we were talking about the difference between being seen as inspiring as a disabled person versus being seen as normal. And the universal across the board, what every single person said was some version of, don't say that I'm inspiring for showing up at the grocery store or for breathing. I'm not inspiring because I exist. That's actually called inspiration porn. There's a reason that it's called that, right? However, I would like to be able to choose to be a role model. I would like to be able to choose to inspire people that they don't have to be stuck here. But I also want to be able to choose when that is, right? And so it's been really interesting. I love that, right? Because people in our scenario want to be both seen as normal, right? Like I want to roll into the room and not have people be like, there's a person in a wheelchair here. Sorry for being awkward, but that was totally me 10 years ago, right? Like, we hide people with disabilities. People with disabilities are not in public. So it becomes really easy when you've been sick for a long time and you don't have any examples. We hide people away. We don't talk about it. And that's really damaging for everyone long-term, because again, we will all become disabled someday, right? Everyone. And we've all seen the people who age well and embrace those limits and still keep living, and the people who completely shut down and don't know how to function anymore, right? And that's what we're trying to thread that needle between.
I think we're also a really good example for our community and the fact that we all also own businesses in addition to running the Empower Network. So I'm a business strategist, Stephanie's a coach, and Rebecca runs a marketing agency. So showing people and actually living in our truth and allowing them to see that it is possible to do this, it just looks different. And, providing that for them too.
Thanks, Rihanna.
Yeah.
Stephanie, I just wanted to say, and we're running out of time here, so be quick. You're awesome. You're awesome. The story you tell and the way you tell it is great. And it really hit home with me. You said sudden onset illness. I lost hearing in one ear recently. And I'm looking for solutions with clinical trials, but it's an inner ear issue. But the biggest thing that my takeaway from this is it can happen to anybody, and we need to help each other.
Thank you.
And in our Tour 1 Million Cup tradition, what can we as a community do for you?
I think the biggest thing that we need help with is getting our message in front of the right funders and the right supporters, right? As Jennifer was talking about, right? The right people who can help make the work happen from a volunteer perspective. And the fact is I can only talk to so many people, and you all are connected to, the 6 degrees of separation, right? We are all connected in infinite ways. And I'm always stunned at the stories that come out, right? People who have children with disabilities, people who have a sibling with disabilities. This story is near and dear to everyone's heart, but it's just not something that we think about, right? So if you all can help us both connect to the people who could use our services and also the people who could support our services, right? Those are the connections that we're looking for, right? In the 1 Million Cups way, right? Not networking, right? But connections. We love to like set up a Zoom call and hear people's stories and find out the ways where they could plug in a meaningful way. Because at the end of the day, we all want to make a difference in the world, right?
Thank you, Stephanie. Absolutely. Stephanie will be around with her team here for a little bit if you have any questions. If you have not, please go ahead and scan the QR code. Important to know that we're doing good work here in the community. And then definitely we're going to be out in the room here by 11 o'clock, I believe. But feel free to mingle and network some more, as well as, if you have any questions, we as the organizers are here as well. And thank you for coming each week to support our amazing entrepreneurs in this community. Thank you, Stephanie.